That's farmer friend, singer-songwriter Lyal Strickland.
And that's farmer friend and jack of all trades Chris Horn.
And we're those Tastebud Guys. Hey guys, that smells good. Welcome back. So, different view, different background, as you can see. Different format tonight. We're going to do something else.
A little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about craft beer and what craft beer means, and all the pomp and circumstance that goes along with that, right?
Yeah, so right up front, we'll tell you this episode probably will be a little longer and a different format than what you normally see when you watch us behind the bar. This is more of a tableside chat, I guess. So, really more about drinking, not about what we're drinking.
You're the Roosevelt of beers.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, so we have all these beers up here.
We do have all these beers up here.
They all have really fancy, artfully done labels.
Mm-hmm.
I think that means they're craft.
Well, that's what people want you to believe. What if I told you that of all these beers up here, there's only two of them that's not owned by Coors and Anheuser-Busch and all of that?
Well, I'd cry bullocks on it.
All right, which one do you think is or is not?
Okay, well, so you've got Shock Top. I know that's a Budweiser product.
Yep, we've already talked about
I
it.
know the Blue Moon's a Miller Coors product.
Yep.
Liney, I'm going to say, is an independent craft beer.
I would have said the same thing.
What's this?
That's Blue Point.
A Blue Point. I know Blue Point is a Budweiser product.
Yep, we've talked about that.
Goose is a Budweiser product.
Yep.
That one says Budweiser.
It is a Budweiser product.
Sam Adams, technically, I think falls into a craft beer. I think that's what we just talked about.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
And New Belgium, I'm going to say, is also a craft beer. So I'm going to go with 3 out of that list, not including the ones we're drinking.
Okay, well, you got 2 out of 3. There is only 2 of them up there, though.
Okay.
So, correctly, this one is independent. It is a craft beer. This one also is independent with the asterisk, as we discussed, and we'll talk about that one again in a little bit.
I see what you did there. You put the craft on the end.
Yeah, and then Leinenklugel.
Crafty.
And then Leinenklugel is also owned by Coors.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know that either. I found that out maybe a year and a half ago, something like that. But
it makes sense because I remember them being around, but they've made a huge push the last couple of years in terms of availability and distribution, which is what usually happens when a craft brew gets bought out by a larger label. They get a much bigger distribution label thing, right?
Yeah. So the thing was, these beers we picked off the table, they're just random stuff we grabbed, either had bought to drink or grabbed off the shelf behind us, whatever the reason. But we distinctly picked them for the reason that you can get them about anywhere. I mean, pretty much all of these can be bought across the United States in particular. And they're all kind of marketed as a craft beer. Mm-hmm. Now, we've made a big deal over the last several episodes talking about what craft beer is, whether it can or cannot be a craft beer, and why that matters, if it matters.
Yeah, and that's a big if it matters.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll get to that.
Okay,
I guess.
so the definition of a craft beer right off the bat is
craft beer. That's what we need to talk about right up front. The definition of a craft beer on paper, as per laws, rules, regulations, is it has to be owned by 25% or less from a not Budweiser or somebody that's large that produces that is also not labeled a craft beer place like Anheuser-Busch.
So if they're not labeled a craft beer, at least 25%?
Yeah, they can't own any more than 25% of something.
Okay.
If they do, so in the case of Coors, if they own more than 25% of this, you cannot call them a craft beer anymore.
Okay.
Okay, so basically that's ruling out your big 3. Okay, which is, why Sam Adams still gets to be called an independent brewer.
Yeah.
They don't have anybody up there, but that's why Goose Island no longer is called independent brewer, because Anheuser-Busch bought out 100% of their market.
Yeah.
So,
and there's a name for Budweiser's craft line of beers, and they still keep it fairly low production rates, considering their Budweiser, but I can't remember what it's called.
I don't know.
I bet it's here.
Maybe.
Yep.
So, second thing they've got to do is they've got to produce, and this is the one that usually, and in my opinion, the most important part of this, the one that usually gets everybody in trouble, including Samuel Adams, is they have to produce less than 6 million barrels a year.
That seems like a lot of beer.
It does seem like a lot of beer. So, let's put that in perspective. So, Budweiser produces, I believe, was 56 million barrels a year?
I thought it was 46.
46
That's
million.
a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 56 million in revenue, 56 billion in revenue, 46 million barrels of beer. So they produce 46 million, so they're nowhere in the ballpark. Yet when you talk about Samuel Adams, who we discussed a little bit in the last episode about having to get that number changed from 2 million to 6 million,
Yeah.
that's because they produce 4 million barrels a year, or at least as of 2016.
Yeah.
So they're still widely, if you can get them anywhere in the United States,
Yeah.
that's a lot of beer.
Yeah.
So to get underneath that 6 million's not that hard as a craft brewer.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it seem like there should be some designation between giant beer and craft beer, like a middle tier.
I agree. I agree. But unfortunately, I think the only beer that falls into that is Samuel Adams.
Yeah.
And maybe like Dogfish Head or something.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so final thing that they want us to, I guess, I don't even know how to explain this last one. It states,
He's embarrassed even just saying the definition.
well, it states that you have to have, how is it phrased? I've already forgotten.
Something about
Innovative brewing techniques. I don't know what that is. It seems very open-ended.
This beer was brewed with old sneakers.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I think that's probably the most important part of this as far as getting a unique beer, but it's the part that seems really weird to
Well, it's all
define.
back end, right? So, I mean, like, it's a very loose, vague definition. And also, it's on the back end. Like, if you're producing a good beer, like, who gives a shit if you, like, how you actually, like, made it, right?
So that kind of brings me to the last point of the craft beer thing is, does it matter?
Yeah.
So we've talked about Samuel Adams, the last one. I keep bringing it up because I like the story, and again, I like Samuel Adams. I like a lot of the beer they do. They have some really cool stuff. But they had to go through the process of changing that number from 2 million to 6 million because they no longer fit under it, but they wanted to call themselves a craft beer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand Jim Koch's reasoning. He wanted to keep that because that's where his home was at. That's what he done, was created a craft beer for himself, and he started out as a home brewer and built this empire under him. I get that. But do you really still need that if you're producing that?
See, this is where the middle tier thing comes in, because I feel like what happens is people go, oh, if it's big beer, it's bad. If it's craft beer, it's good. And that's certainly not the case. I've had some horrible craft beers, and I've had some great, I've had a great big beer.
Okay, I just specifically put this one on the table because no, they're not going to fit under that 56 or that 6 million barrels a year.
Yeah.
Or at least as far as a company wide, they're not. That's a very good beer.
It's a damn good beer.
I'm really happy drinking that beer.
It's not my favorite, and yes, my expectations were incredibly low, but like, it's a good, solid beer.
I've bought at least 3 6-packs of it.
Yeah.
Since it was released.
I ordered it at a bar, and you know how hard it is for me to order like a plain beer at a bar.
I agree. So at the end of the day, does it matter? Does it matter what you're drinking? Does it matter who makes what you're drinking?
I think it does, in the respect that I think it boils down to distribution. Now, this has nothing to do with whether it's a good beer or a bad beer.
Right.
But I think that craft beer, I think the big thing is distribution. And I think it's actually smaller than what the definition allows for, right? So I think what's cool about craft beer are the local breweries, the regional breweries, stuff that you can't get 3 hours outside of your hometown, right? Because that makes it special when you visit a place to have this amazing beer that you'll have once or twice on vacation or when you're traveling through somewhere, and it lives in your memory in infamy.
And you have
that one IPA in Massachusetts was so good. It was the best one I had. And really, probably if you put it up next to all the ones you drink on a regular basis, it probably is like as good. but
I totally agree.
But it's a special thing, and that's why I think like I don't think that the craft name is it shouldn't pigeonhole you in terms of what you drink. ever.
I agree. I guess the whole reason we wanted to sit down and do this episode was for those of you that are kind of trying to get into beer,
Yeah.
and it seems daunting. Well, it is, but that's not your fault or anyone else's fault that is trying to legitimately get you into it. There are people out there that make it hard because they want to be very pretentious about it.
Well, they make it hard on both sides. I mean, there's people that are pretentious about like, well, I don't want to drink any craft beer. No, I'm not drinking that girly stuff or whatever their mantra.
Beer.
Yeah. I mean, which is is run on ad campaigns by the big beer companies, who are the same people buying up small, delicious craft beer and marketing it under their own label. You know.
Well, like I said, what we want to get a point across is just go try stuff. If you want to educate yourself, this is a great show, hopefully, a great show to help you understand that, but don't be scared of it. It's just a beer. Try one. You may not like them all. Every one of these tastes different for their own various reasons.
Absolutely.
Educate yourself, give it a shot. What are you drinking tonight?
So right now I'm drinking a Ballast Point Fathom IPA. I've not had the Fathom IPA. I've had a lot of their IPAs. They're out of San Diego, I believe. San Diego. This is one of those breweries that is like lives in legend. Ballast Point is like, and actually this is the first Ballast Point beer that I've had, and I've only had maybe 4 or 5 of them. This is the first one that I actually truly enjoy on its own accord, apart from all the fanfare.
I've had maybe 2 of them, and I wasn't a big fan.
I think you'd like this one.
Yeah, I'll try to give it a shot. I'm running New Holland, the Poet Oatmeal Stout, and this is out of Michigan, New Holland, Michigan. I've never had one of them before that I'm aware of. It's not bad. It's all right.
Now, out of these beers sitting in front of us, not talking the style, because I know we've got New Belgium's Voodoo IPA, which is not up your alley at all. But like, out of these, what's your go-to, like brand-wise?
Brand-wise, you absolutely cannot go wrong with anything Samuel Adams produces. Anything Leinenkugel produces.
Okay.
Although some of it's a little fruity for my tastes.
Yeah, I would say.
And you're actually wrong about this one. I absolutely love
Voodoo.
Well, Voodoo and I got New Holland in my head. New Belgium.
They've got great beer.
New Belgium makes Fat Tire, which, if you remember, for the longest time was my go-to beer forever.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty close on you on that. I think Leinenkugel's, they make some really good beer. Leinenkugel's is almost a purely summertime beer for me. All of their stuff is very light and refreshing.
If you're trying to get somebody to try something different,
Lemon Shandy.
This specific beer is a fantastic beer to break someone into. Even if they say they don't like beer, let them try that one.
Yep.
It's a really smooth drinking. Wait for it's hot. It needs to be hot.
Yeah.
It's a good, not the beer, the temperature.
So, craft beer, it's not what it seems. And all of these, you'll notice all of those labels, like, look, they're very artfully done.
Yeah. I think the labels is a big part about it, the artwork. There's several breweries I could think of that I have subscribed to their social media because I love their labeling.
Yeah.
And it just looks great coming up on my feed.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like, a lot of drinking beer, I mean, like, at least a solid chunk of it is, like, it's just fun. It's just cool. Fun. And you have a good time, and sometimes you got a great-looking beer that tastes awful.
Yeah, and you look...
Or vice versa.
Pretentious as can be, drinking this old dark beer compared to that thing he's got.
What are you trying to say?
You picked the wrong beer. Because I'm pretentious.
All right,
so real quick, before we get out here, let me just ask you one question, and let's close this out. Does it matter if Samuel Adams is craft or not, or whether or not the beer that you're drinking is owned by somebody else? And if so, why? I will follow up with one statement after you say it.
Okay, so I think that it matters somewhat, right? Mm-hmm. If the beer is good, it doesn't matter. If the beer is good, all bets are off. I don't care who it's made by. I like that beer. I don't know. The Sam Adams and Leinenkugel's, to me, they're such big brands. You find them everywhere. And not that that's a bad thing, but like if I go into a bar, like I'm probably not going to order a Sam Adams at a bar unless they don't have anything else that I haven't had before. Like I'm going to try something local first, regional first, something that I haven't had first.
But what happens if you like that Sam Adams beer? Does it matter that the craft or not?
No, absolutely not. They make a good beer. I think that's where it is.
Okay, so
I will say, with one caveat. I do think that Sam Adams is independently owned, right? And I think that brands like Blue Point and Goose and Leinenkugel's and Blue Moon that are owned by these larger beer companies, I think they're at a terrible unfair advantage. So I will say that.
So that ties into the one caveat I have about it. It's visibility.
Yeah.
And that is the simple thing, like we talked about with Blue Moon. When you looked on their cap, they say made by Blue Moon Brewing Company. Nowhere on this bottle does it say anywhere about Moeller Coors.
Yeah.
Nowhere on this bottle does it say, well, this one actually might say Anheuser if I remember right. But you'd have to look really hard to find it if it does. This one does not say Anheuser. This one does not say Anheuser. This one at least does.
And that's a reason that I particularly like that beer, is they made something different than their big brand, and they made
their
something,
name on it.
Absolutely,
Be proud of it.
They took credit for it. And Budweiser's a cool brand. They have an incredible history. They do some incredible stuff.
I can't disagree with that.
And they
As much
finally
as
made a beer that I
I like to slap Budweiser around, and be snooty about it because it's easy to do.
Yeah.
They really are kind of cool.
These feel deceptive. I enjoy the fact that they owned up to that one.
So if I had if there's any big beer companies out there watching, if I had one piece of advice, is put your name on it and be proud of it.
Yep.
At least be transparent.
Yeah.
So
totally agree.
That'd be my only objection to it. Otherwise, I don't care who makes my beer. If it doesn't matter if it's craft or not, we're going to call a lot of things on this show this craft, whether they really are by definition, which includes these two.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
it's just something to talk about.
All right. Well, until next time,
try something new.